Hey everyone, it's time to spark another conversation in the Triple Finale Career Lounge, where we blend real conversations with smart tech to help you find that career that you're excited to pursue.
You know, most job seekers just scratch their heads when it comes to the formatting of their resumes because in many cases it feels like they should get this really quick response from the company followed by an invitation to interview. If you're lucky, this may happen. However, all too often, a resume is submitted with either no response or a rejection email, even if technically you're qualified for the role. In all too many cases, the issue is whether or not the system that you submitted your resume to can even read, organize, and rank the text on your resume in the first place. Platforms like LinkedIn and JobScan have been pointing this out to us for years. And honestly, this surprises a lot of people because you can have a wonderful work history and great experience, really strong skills, and even a really well-written resume. But if the system can't properly read it, it can't properly organize it. And if it can't organize it, it simply can't recommend you. Remember in the last video when we talked about those 3 layers and that first layer being the technical layer? Basically, we were talking about how OCR reads your resume and then the ATS organizes that information. Well, this is exactly where that becomes really important. Because now the question that you should be focusing on is, how do you make sure that your resume actually gets read correctly by the system's ATS's OCR feature? That's a mouthful. And believe it or not, sometimes the difference comes down to something as simple as the file format that you choose or how your document is structured. First, let's chat about the file format that you chose because there's a lot of debate around this topic. Should you choose a PDF file, a .doc file, a PNG, a .docx? Which one actually works best? Okay, here's the practical answer. It's not really dependent on which format looks the nicest. It's dependent upon which format is the most reliable for the system to interpret.
According to resume optimization platforms like jobscan.co and guidance published by several ATS vendors, .docx files are still considered the safest universal format because they're designed as structured text documents. Many ATS platforms have OCR features that can also read PDFs just fine as long as they are text-based PDFs. But here's where people sometimes get into trouble. If a PDF is created from a design program, and think about your favorite graphic design platforms that you use, or it's saved as an image instead of text, the system may struggle to interpret it correctly. So here's a good rule of thumb to remember. Whether your resume is a PDF, a .docs, or a .docx file, remember what really matters is whether your information exists as actual text. Because OCR and ATS systems can only reliably work with text data. So, if your resume is saved in a way where your words are basically treated like an image or a picture instead of text, the system may struggle to interpret it correctly. So then the real question isn't just what file type do I use? The better question is my information stored as reliable, readable text? Because at the end of the day, the system can only organize what it can actually understand.
Okay, this is where a simple test can help you know where you stand. All right? It's really practical, and honestly, it's one of my favorite tricks because almost nobody's talking about it. So, it's called the highlight test. What you're going to do is open your resume and try to highlight your text in your resume like you would if you were going to be copying and pasting it into another document. Everything that you can highlight is going to give you an idea of what can actually be read by the OCR. So if you can highlight the text normally, the whole resume, that's usually a good sign. And make note that if you're going to be highlighting and you're in a Word document, anything that's in the header or the footer field is not going to be highlighted. So the OCR is not going to read anything in the header or footer fields. Okay? But if you try to highlight your resume and nothing happens, or when you go to highlight it, it looks really strange because it highlights certain bits and pieces, or it highlights in a strange pattern like blocks, or it skips sections. Well, this can be a warning sign that the OCR may struggle to read your resume, especially with heavily designed templates. Resumes built in graphic programs or resumes that have been saved as image files instead of text documents will really struggle to be read by the OCR. Okay, so this simple test gives you a quick reality check by giving you a visual of what the OCR is really reading. Remember this, if you can't highlight it, the system might not be able to read it. And again, if it can't read it, and it can't organize it. And if it can't organize it, it cannot recommend you no matter how much you want that job.
Okay, now we all understand that AI can read images today, because technology has gotten very advanced. Some systems can interpret charts, photos, and even stylized resumes. But just because the technology can read something doesn't mean that it will read it consistently or accurately across every company's platforms. So the warning here is when you're relying heavily on graphics, fancy layouts, text boxes, or image-based resumes, you really are gambling with how your information gets interpreted. We understand these elements can showcase your capabilities and even elevate your personal brand, which is exactly why they work well on platforms like LinkedIn, where humans are viewing your profile first. But when it comes to your resume, clarity and readability should always come first, because getting through the technology or that technical layer is what gives your story the chance to be seen by the right people. Keep that in mind. And this isn't just theory. Resume platforms like jobscan.co and Resume Lab regularly point out that formatting problems are one of the biggest reasons that qualified candidates get overlooked. Not because they lack experience, but because their information wasn't organized correctly by the system. We don't want that to be you.
All right, this is where true career transition strategy comes into play. Your goal isn't to test the limits of AI. Your goal is to remove as much risk as possible. So even though AI is getting smarter, the safest strategy is still to make sure that your resume is easy to read, easy to organize, and easy to rank. When it comes to that technical layer of the application process, clarity beats creativity every single time. So now that we understand OCR readability, let's talk about a few structure rules that can quietly cause problems if you're not aware of them. Sometimes it's not your experience holding you back, it's how your information is structured. Things like having, multiple columns or heavy tables, text boxes, graphics, photos, or overly designed templates can sometimes confuse how the ATS organizes your information. Not always, but often enough that you don't want to take unnecessary chances. And remember what we talked about earlier. The system isn't judging you, it's trying to organize the information that you give it. And the recruiter will judge you down the road. But formatting errors can break that organization process. And when that happens, your skills might not get categorized correctly. Your experience might not get weighted properly. And your ranking could suffer simply because the system couldn't interpret your layout clearly. And that's a painful way to lose ground because, it really has nothing to do with your qualifications. This is why a simpler structure for your resume always wins. When you have clean sections, clear headings, straightforward formatting. You really want your resume to feel easy and organized, right? Easy to read, easy to organize. Once your resume is readable and structured correctly, then the question becomes, how competitive is your content? Because the ATS isn't just organizing resumes, it's also connecting with that AEDT to compare the content that's in your resume. One of the biggest factors in that comparison is something surprisingly simple: your job titles, your skills, the language that you use. Studies have shown that resumes using job titles and terminology that closely match the role that you're applying for tend to perform better in searches and recruiter filtering. You know, that makes sense, right? Because the system is looking for alignment. And LinkedIn Hiring Insights have consistently shown that candidates whose resumes closely match the language and terminology of a job description tend to appear more often in recruiter searches. This doesn't mean that you have to go and change your work history. It means that you present your experience in a language that the system recognizes. And you do this for each and every position to which you apply. This process is called tailoring your resume. And it's key when you're optimizing your resume. Again, platforms like LinkedIn, jobscan.co, and TealHQ all emphasize that tailoring your resume to the job description instead of sending the same version everywhere makes a lot of sense, and it's the best way to optimize your chances to be selected for that role.
So in the next video, we're going to talk about how to actually optimize your resume once it's readable, including tools that can help you see how your resume compares, how close you are to the target role, and what small adjustments could possibly improve your positioning before you apply. But first, let me ask you something. Are you using tools like this today? Do you know how your resume might rank before you ever submit it through a company's ATS? Our clients at Triple Finale Careers do. This is built directly into our career marketing and branding process because we believe you shouldn't be guessing in a competitive job market. You should be measuring. If you'd like help learning how to do this, we invite you to join one of our online group peer pods where we walk you through these strategies step by step so you can not only stand out to employers, but also strengthen your options in a very competitive market. Visit us today at www.triplefinale.com. That's www.triplefinale.com to sign up for a solo class that you can take at your own pace, or the instructor-led 4-week online group peer pod, where you can experience this process within a supportive group setting.